Good evening, everybody, on this final day of July. I hope you guys are doing well. I've been getting a lot of comments the last week. I guess was a week, 10 days, something like that. Especially after the last man-child news, where people were asking me about my thoughts on the latest spate of crowd funds. And Haslab and Mattel are both ramping this up. And of course, the Mattel Creations Dino Gate, as I like to call it, failed spectacularly. Like it was one for, your parkour fail compilation. Like it was boom, and just it didn't even make minimum. It was miles from the minimum goal. And when I posted man-child news, first of all, hope everybody's having a great evening. Thanks for being here. When I posted man-child news last week, there was a comment that I got from somebody on Twitter saying that I was incorrect, that Jurassic Park, because I had implied jokingly in man-child news that Jurassic Park it's a well-regarded brand, and it's good for kids of a certain age who want to perennially buy dinosaur toys because kids go through that phase. So that's why, Jurassic Park branded dinosaur toys are going to do solid business, but he was taking exception to the idea that Jurassic Park wasn't robust enough a brand at this point to sell a crowd fund. Even though the crowd fund had failed, he was defending the brand he was simping for Jurassic Park. And so I was thinking about that. And then there was a number of other comments that came in asking me why in that man-child news I didn't mention the Ghost and its crowd fund and how successful it was. First of all, man-child news is a comedy reel. It is a satirical monthly look at select things from around pop culture. I don't know why some people have gotten it in their heads that a 3.5-minute spoof reel is supposed to be comprehensive. It's not. It's whatever I think is damn funny that month. And that's the whole thing, is that when I was a newspaper reporter, I was a journalist for several years. It's really true, because I did graduate studies in mass comm and concentration journalism. The old adage, if it bleeds, it leads, is very true. It's more entertaining to mention the Jurassic Park crowd fund because there's more to dig into than there is the Ghost crowd fund, which succeeded because Star Wars are my gird. Like, you can actually tie some of this back to, yes, thank you, Just Jeff. He says, indeed, man-child news is sitting on a tire. Some folks just want to ice skate on a basketball court. The thing about Star Wars versus Jurassic Park can even be tied to creating content on YouTube for this community. If you've ever done videos, if you have your own channel about pop culture, whether it's movies or toys or something in the pop culture space, I promise you, Sal at 2 Cents Toys and I would joke about this all the time. Put out something about Jurassic Park and then put out something about Star Wars. Like, regardless of how esoteric the topic is for that Star Wars video, you're gonna get at least 20% more views than you did on the Jurassic Park video. That's not me saying that Jurassic Park as a film wasn't good. I have immense respect and admiration for that first movie. I've been buying the Mattel Legacy Collection over the years. I've done videos about it. But Jurassic Park doesn't have the merchandising muscle or the pop culture cachet, even after 6 movies, that Star Wars does, even in Star Wars limping condition that it's in right now. Star Wars still moves product a lot better. Now, we could debate all night about the Ghost, and we will to a degree. But first, let's tackle the Jurassic Park thing and get it out of the way, okay? The Jurassic Park crowd fund. There's a number of reasons that that thing was never going to go off. One, which we've just started addressing, is this false perception that Jurassic Park has a lot of cachet to the same degree that Star Wars does. It simply doesn't in action figure terms. This guy was saying that the proof that Jurassic Park has just as much merchandising power as Star Wars, wait for it, you're going to love this, is because Jurassic Park statues are licensed and sold. Jurassic Park statues. Now, I don't know how much you guys dabble in the whole statue thing, but that's not a measure of how popular something is. We're talking about merchandise viability versus general popularity, and those two things can swing wildly. I told this guy, I said, look, man, I said, statue collecting is very popular with a certain subset of collector culture. And there are many statue companies that license all kinds of things like superheroes, and there are Star Wars statues. And then there's the bust format versus the Kotobayuka, whatever, however you pronounce that, the Bishu, whatever that's called, where they stylize the statues like anime, but they're Western characters or whatever. But I told the guy, I said, what you have to understand is statues do have a strength within certain pop culture fandoms, particularly gamers, because by and large, and this is something that I was told by a game company. All right. This is not me just waffling on. A gaming company told me that gamers, according to their market research, like to buy statues generally more than action figures. Now, my argument to that would be, well, it seems like gaming licenses are given over to statues a lot more frequently than they attempt to make action figures from. So in some ways, there's an untested market there. But in other ways, it kind of shows people's collecting preferences, because if you spend most of your extracurricular time seated in, one of those gaming chairs, either playing your console on your 75-inch TV, or you're playing your, super roided up Alienware PC, you're probably not spending time putting up display cases where you want to interact with action figures or whatever. And you just want a cool statue of a few of your favorite characters within your line of sight while you're playing a game. So I can kind of get there. I can kind of see that. Well, Jurassic Park, this guy was claiming, has statues made of it. And I'm like, well, so does Star Wars. So does Doctor Who. So does Star Trek. So does G.I. Joe. So does Transformers. I mean, statues are not indicative necessarily of how big the fan base is for other subsets of merchandise. And thank you, Laser Pants, for the kind super chat. Irma Gerd Sturchers. Yeah, like I told the guy, I said, you got to ask yourself, one, how much money per unit is each statue? Because the price to entry for most action figures, if we're not talking about Storm collectibles, is fairly low, especially when you compare it to statues. Licensed statues are several $100 each, and they can go up, like the Weta statues are like over $1,000. I mean, they are ridiculous. There's a Superman statue coming out soon of Christopher Reeve that's going to be like, it's on Big Bad Toy Store right now. It's like $3 or $4 grand. Like it's insane. And there are people who are really going to want that for sure. But statues are made in much lower quantities. So if we're talking about, I was buying the Gaming Heads Tomb Raider statue several years ago. It's one of many in a range. I only wanted the one, but I think it was limited to something like, I want to say like 500 or 1,000 or something crazy like that. There weren't that many made, and it was about $500 to get that statue. You really have to like the property, and there has to be an if you're an action figure guy, right? And you really like a property and there are no action figures, you have to really like that property to throw money down for a statue. Like, it has to be the only game in town, which in this case it was. And I did the video on it years ago. But you're talking like, let's say that, what was it? I think Bobby Vallis said that Marvel Legends is something like, Marvel Legends does, what is it, 30,000 figures per character or something like that, or 30 or 50, something like that. Marvel Legends is one of their most numerous, like, per unit, not per unit, sorry, units per character production. He said Marvel Legends was pretty high, even now at Hasbro. So for every one statue that's made of, say, Spider-Man, right, at a statue company, I would be willing to bet you would easily have 1,000 Spider-Man figures. That's a conservative estimate. Brian Dillingham, thank you so much for the kind Dillinghamsm, sir. It's good to see you here tonight. Yeah, Embargo, you gotta check it out. It's a Superman statue over on Big Bad Toy Store. It's really cool to see, but it's insane. Like, there's no way I'll be buying it. But yeah, and Retro Candy Series says, I just bought a Berserk statue for $2,500. Yeah, that's totally normal based on what I've experienced. But you can't use that, not that you are, but this guy, you can't use that as a measure of how popular in a merchandising perspective a property is. As a matter of fact, a lot of the time you're either wandering into areas where the fandoms of those properties care nothing about toys, or the property is so specialized, or whatever you want to call it, that it doesn't make any sense to license merchandise that's beyond statues and limited edition inert collectibles. Like, it's kind of in that world. And so when the guy said there's $1,000 Jurassic Park statues being made, that proves that that brand is really, really awesome and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, well, it's very possible that the Jurassic Park fan base, of older people with more income, or possibly even because of Jurassic World, there might be a spate of younger Jurassic Park fans who are new, and they're new to the franchise relative to us, but they're probably more likely to be gamers. And what are they doing? They would probably prefer statues over action figures. So that whole thing, I just had to unpack for you guys real quick, because that doesn't make any sense. I even asked the guy, I said, I'm gonna need number of statues per run. So, like, in other words, whatever the Jurassic Park statue is, how many of them did they make, and what was the price point, and how many of them actually sold? Like, because compared to action figures, statues are far less produced. Like, they're far more limited, they're far more exclusive. If I'm sniffing a lot, it's because I think I shouldn't have let Kirby sit on me before I came downstairs to do this. I'm probably got some cat allergy going on. Analog Toys, thank you so much. I want a statue of Broken Vader. I'll get right on that. Thank you so much for the kind super chat. This is what I'm saying. I'm not saying, Adam, that the brand doesn't have a loyal fan base. Like I just said, a brand can have a loyal fan base that's not interested in certain types of merchandise. I mean, do you know that to this day, Tomb Raider has never been able to successfully sell action figures? It's never been able to do it. And companies like Playmates Toys and NECA and others have tried. That doesn't mean that Tomb Raider doesn't have a loyal fan base. You're not going to find people more loyal holding the torch for nothing at this point than Tomb Raider. They are like ride or die on that brand. Like I've seen the diehards, like the ones that live and breathe it every day, where I'm splitting my attention between a few loved franchises. There's another element here that goes beyond. There's no question, Adam, that Jurassic Park has a loyal fan base. Like we just established that at the beginning. The question comes down to, okay, they do. What were the factors that led to the Dino Gate failing? And it's not just, the crowdfund was too much for what was offered. There's more to it than that. That's part of it, but there's more to it than that. Yes, the value proposition was garbage. However, if there's a ton of diehard Jurassic Park fans to the level that there are Star Wars fans, you would have seen far more backers on that, even if it still failed. There's something else going on here. It's not conspiratorial. It's called a perfect storm of problems. Okay. So one of those problems is the Jurassic Park brand has been really confused by Mattel for several years now. They're not really sure where to land with their stuff because they started with just the Jurassic World toys that were licensed because the new Jurassic World movies came out. Then they said, hey, let's provide Target with a legacy collection that will be scaled in 3 3/4 inch like the Jurassic World range, but it will only be based on the classic films, which so far they've really only done stuff from the first and second movie. And it'll be all cross-compatible. And that was actually cool because that's where I kind of jumped in and said, I would like to collect the legacy collection, please. And I did. And, that went well for a while. Jurassic Park, like as a brand on shelves, it has been the biggest pleasure to go to a store and hunt for them because they're always where they say they're going to be. It's never a mystery as to how they're getting distributed. They're never bank breaking in their prices. Their quality is really good for what you're expecting if you're a classic action figure guy like me. There's no problem with the line on that front. But then they said, you know what? We want to compete in the 6-inch market. So we're going to do an amber collection to try and compete with Marvel Legends and Black Series and all that kind of stuff. Well, that started to get muddy. And then around the time they did that, they said, you know what? Let's have this thing called the Hammond collection. And that's when I got confused. And I said, well, wait a second. So the Hammond collection is what? And they were like, well, it's the Legacy collection, but it's more detailed. And I went, so what does that mean? And what did they start doing? They started re-releasing figures from the Legacy collection, but with slightly revised sculpting and a few more extra bits here and there in the bubble and charging more money for them and putting them in a little black box and calling it Hammond collection figures and dinosaurs. Well, gee, for somebody like me, I'm kind of happy with my Alan Grant and my Ellie Sattler and my Ian Malcolm as they are. Like, I don't really need to buy those over again at a higher price. And I don't really know if I necessarily want a $50 T-Rex of a T-Rex I've already got that's supposed to just have better articulation. Because you've already got me on the hook for like 2 T-Rexes from the various sets that I've already bought. So that's weird. Not really sure I'm going to do that. Now, I'm gonna step outside myself for a minute because, as you guys know, I don't do crowdfunding. All right, I don't crowdfund things. I've made that known. Laser Pants, thank you for the super chat. I want a taxidermy statue of Desert Rat. Well, he's already got a few action figures, so we're on our way. Salvador, thank you for the kind super chat, sir. Walk into any local comic book shop and you'll see tons of sun-bleached statue boxes. You'll probably see sun-bleached Force Awakens toys too, but still, fans can be super loyal, but also super broke. Yeah, very true. Very, very true. Now, I just saw here, somebody said that the Thundercats lair funded. The Thundercats lair funded already, really? I'm looking that up right now because that might factor into our conversation. All right, let's see. The time left is 48 days. Okay, so its basic tier has funded it. 3,100 backers out of a goal of 3,000. Okay, so now it's just a matter of the other two tiers. Very interesting. All right. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. So we've got Honor Guard DC. Thank you so much for the kind super chat. I love statues as long as they are fully articulated. Okay. Thor, I'm going to get to your question in a second. So you've now got 3 lines temporarily. I don't even know if the Amber line is still being sold. Like I can't get a read on it. I'm like, okay, well, I still see Jurassic World. And I just walked into Target the other day, and there was a brand new Legacy Collection set with Muldoon and the Raptor in the cage with the workers with the yellow hard hats. And I almost picked that up and then didn't because I was like, it's the end of the month. I got to try and like scrape together a few bucks. So I'm going to wait on that because I'm confident I'll be able to find that again at Target at some point. They've been very good about stocking those. And that is hats off to Mattel for making that happen. But Amber Collection, aside from a few dinosaurs still hanging around, is kind of gone. And the Hammond Collection figures were there for a while, but now it's just a few dinosaurs. And so you're sitting back and you're looking at this, and I'm saying to myself, okay, there's a brand new Legacy Collection thing out. The Hammond Collection is sort of still around. The Amber Collection seems gone. And this crowdfund comes out and says, we're doing some Hammond Collection stuff. Okay. So what is the crowdfund? Well, the crowdfund was the gate and some fencing made out of some elastic cord, right? That was like tier 1. And then they said, well, tier 2 is going to be, or maybe it was the Explorer with it. I can't remember. There was an Explorer in there that was part of it. And then there was the Buck T-Rex, which was a tier. And then there were the kids, Lex and Tim. And then there were the little signs that, denote all the habitats. So I guess the hope is that you get all the signs and then you're going to want to buy every single dinosaur they release for the Hammond Collection to fill that out, army build them, because you're going to need 50 Gallimimus or something like that. But unfortunately, from the get-go, it was, all right, it's Hammond Collection, which is more detailed than Legacy Collection. So the Explorer, even though it was the same mold as the Explorer from the Target Legacy Collection, and it was the different number, the Target one was the 4 or 5, whichever one it was, and then the Hammond Collection one in the crowdfund was the other one that hadn't been released yet. So you'd have 2 Explorers, right? It was immediately evident that the Hammond Collection Mattel Creations Explorer, despite using the same mold and having some of the same features, had a bunch of extra detail on it. Like details that were so numerous and so visible that the moment you put that Explorer up next to the basic Target Legacy Explorer that had come out, it was going to be obvious that one looked stripped down for no good reason whatsoever. Like even the rear view mirror wasn't on the Target one, and then they put it on the crowdfunded one. So I'm sitting there as a Legacy Collection guy going, well, that one's not going to look right next to the other one. Now, I wouldn't have bought into this anyway because it's a crowdfund. But again, I'm stepping out of myself for a minute and looking at this as if, all right, the 2 Explorers aren't going to match up. They're not one. They're going to look like they're from 2 different toy lines. Like I liked the Explorer from Target, but when I saw the one that was being offered in the crowdfund, I knew it would make the one from Target look like it was from the Dollar Tree. Like it really, it was way too far afield. It was several bridges too far away from the detail that was baked into that one. Okay. Or lack of detail. Then you've got the Buck T-Rex, which it's from the wrong movie. It's not even, and I know what happened. They knew that they had put out the Jurassic Park T-Rex way too many times already. So they needed to try and find a way to entice buyers with something they said they wanted. So what do? They throw in the Buck T-Rex, which is like, okay, they want that from the Lost World. Although some Jurassic Park people have told me they've already released that before, which... So people are saying now, they're going, well, that's not even from the right movie. Then you got Lex and Tim coming out in a tier that you have to unlock. Tim comes with like part of the fence or something, and maybe Lex came with the Explorer. I can't remember. Or she came with the signs. I can't remember. But Lex and Tim were both in this muddy deco. But Lex, her feature was it's like The Simpsons, where it's like, but she has a new hat. You know, she's now got the purple cap on. Well, anybody that knows Jurassic Park, I am not a super fan of Jurassic Park, but I got my eyes on the details. I can remember a movie I like, and I even went back and checked it to be sure. Lex in the movie, right, never wears that purple cap after she's gotten all muddy, because she takes the purple cap off in front of the T-Rex paddock at night in the rain in the Explorer and hits her brother with it, and then never puts it back on, and then suddenly the goat leg hits the Explorer. Mayhem ensues, and suddenly she's getting pulled out from under the Explorer, and now she's muddy, but the cap never comes back into the movie. So what was Mattel doing here? If you are a loyal super fan of Jurassic Park, like Adam was saying earlier, if you're a loyal super fan, all right, you're going to pick up on those details. And if you're not asking, wait a second, why am I being asked to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a Hammond collection, which is supposed to be like the Black Series and the Vintage Collection for Star Wars? It's supposed to be, and we know Hasbro gets those details wrong as well, but it's supposed to be the final word in these are the ranges of toys that get the details right. These are the ranges of toys you pay a premium for because they get it right, because they're the best that's ever been. Then why didn't somebody step up and say, hey, if we're going to put the cap on her, then she's got to have clean clothes? Oh, wait, because they didn't really make the Lex and Tim from the Legacy Collection sets muddy enough for what scenes they were in. Oh, so we're trying to add variation upon variation, even if those variations don't marry up with themselves. Wow, wow. Okay. So all of this, plus the fact that the signs were kind of lame, you're only getting 2 little pieces of the fence, none of it was looking like it was worth $250. Even with the unlocks, it was all a hot mess. The whole thing was just kind of, it was a mess. Oh, I think I just read this one. Sorry about that. It wasn't making a lot of sense. Internet Nobody, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, I feel like the Jurassic Park fandom has the same mindset as the Star Wars fan base, just being jaded by the current state of their franchise. But we're going to get to the ghost, because even though the Star Wars fan base is jaded, they did not leave that ghost on the floor with Haslab. They picked it up and ran with it faster than Sonic the Hedgehog. Raymond, thank you so much for the kind super chat. He says, I don't collect statues, but I might make an exception with the Sideshow 1/6 scale Man with No Name. I can understand that. Mainly because Clint Eastwood consulted with Sideshow on its creation. That to me makes it worth it. That would be a very interesting one to have. That would be very prestigious for sure. Yeah, exactly. We're just getting a door on top of some signs, some inaccurate figures, a dinosaur from the wrong movie, and a re-release of the Explorer that won't match up with the other one. Not good. And so when you put all that together with the fact that the Jurassic Park fans are able to get these toys in Target really easily. In other words, even me, who's just a casual Jurassic Park buyer, I've never had a problem picking up Jurassic Park, whereas every other line that I've ever collected, in stores within the last 10 to 15 years, it's been a problem to find what you're looking for. Every other line has been that way. So Jurassic Park has not been difficult to find. People have been generally happy, aside from like the missing stripe on one of the Jeeps mysteriously in the Nedry set. But other than some little mistakes like that, and a little bit of cost cutting, because like Some Jeeps ended up with nicer features than others mysteriously. Like the first Jeep had some features that were better, and then the second Jeep cut those features out for others. And so there's been a little bit of, wait, what's going on here? But by and large, you're getting the figures and collectibles you're looking for. You're able to find them. There hasn't, aside from some San Diego Comic-Con exclusives over the years, like the Dennis Nedry and Samuel L. Jackson's character, who was only in like a special set. Aside from those, it's been pretty straightforward to get those sets. So there's not a lot of incentive there. So it makes it even less enticing to pay into an overpriced nothing burger, right? I said to myself, well, I just picked up, it was a coincidence. Before the Mattel Creations crowdfund was announced, I had just picked up another Explorer for $20 just to have two Explorers, because I thought, well, at a distance, you're not really going to be reading the numbers on them. And I just need two Explorers to kind of fill out the two vehicles with all the appropriate characters. So it makes the whole thing less enticing. It's like, did I ever really envision that I was going to have a fence and a gate and not at that price? Not when I'm still able to just literally walk into Target last week and pick up the latest Legacy Collection set, which, by the way, is a really nice set. I haven't purchased it yet, but it's really great value for what you're putting down your money for. And for diehard Jurassic Park fans, it's something I'm sure they never thought they would get. All of it was a misfire. And it speaks to the idea that the Jurassic Park crew at Mattel, maybe they don't have as good enough a read on on what's worth crowdfunding than they think. Example from Jurassic Park. One of the things that was lacking in the Legacy Collection. I'm not a huge fan of The Lost World. Saw it in theaters, was really excited for it. It's kind of like my experience with Mission Impossible 2. Loved the first movie, got so excited to go run out and see the second film, and then the second film, waited for it, and then it was like, the second film was lame. However, that mobile lab vehicle, the one that hangs over the cliff, and then Julianne Moore is hanging through, she's on the windshield, it starts to crack. That thing has only been mocked up in cardboard as packaging for a Legacy Collection set with her and I think a Stegosaurus or something like that. That would have been a vehicle that would have made a crowdfund for Jurassic Park worth it. If you had that vehicle and Hammond Collection grade Julianne Moore and Ian Malcolm from that movie, maybe even the Vince Vaughn character, and then you had the Buck T-Rex with that, and maybe a few Raptors or something, now you're getting to a place where it sounds like it's worth it, because the combo all works together. You're getting a vehicle that you've never gotten before. You're getting it in Hammond grade detail. I would have been tempted that actually would have tempted me. I'm not saying I would have crossed the line into crowdfund, but that would have tempted me for the first time to maybe consider crowdfunding something. Even though I'm not the biggest Jurassic Park super fan in the world, I'm a big enough fan of the first movie and that vehicle from the second movie that I might be like, this might be worth jumping into. But unfortunately, they don't think that way. Yeah, exactly. That would have been hilarious. I'd have done it. Here's the thing, Jesse. The moment you come up with a good idea for any of these companies, whether it's a movie, a toy, whatever, you can be guaranteed it will never happen. The moment somebody comes up with a good idea that's not in the walls of that company, or most of the time, even in the walls of a corporation, they will never do it. It's like they are allergic to good ideas. They are allergic to common sense. It's ridiculous. And King Eric, they're never going to do that. Not because you said it necessarily, but because Hasbro's whole thing with Indiana Jones is an anemic layup. It's It always was, and it always will be. Indiana Jones. I swear, I'm gonna put my money on that brand being dead by the end of the year. I don't think Hasbro has any passion behind it. I think they did it as a merchandising layup for Disney, and they clearly not put enough effort into it the whole time. They didn't make the right combos. There's not one group of figures in that adventure series that you can put together to make a trio or group of characters from one of the films correctly. There isn't a one. And that, my friends, is a feat. You have to try to get it that wrong. Oh, thank you, Darth Wizzy Wizard. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much. So all of those factors, they all contribute to the reason that the Jurassic Park thing face planted. But then there's another reason that I think is worth bringing up, and that's the ghost, the Star Wars Haslab. I'm going to just quickly pull up here this page because the numbers are just staggering. So you've got 37 more days to go on this thing, and the target was 8,000 backers, and it currently, and I think that was the high end target for all the tiers, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just make sure that I have that. Oh, no. Okay. So we're not at all the tiers yet. So the tiers are extra action figures. So 11,000 backers, 14,000 backers, and 17,000 backers gets you vintage collection grade figures of Ezra, Kanan, and Zeb. However, when you consider the fact that this show, Rebels, and this ship are already funded. In other words, even though this wasn't mainline Star Wars in the grand scheme of things, and even though they're branding this as being from the Ahsoka television show, even though the unlocks are sort of realistic. It's very throwing because the card backs are cartoonish, but the figures are vintage collection, screen accurate style, as if they were live action. It's already been backed. So that means that people in the run up to the end of the campaign, they're going to be more likely to jump in, because if more people then jump in, they know they're going to get the thing, and they might actually unlock more of these tiers. But my other, and this is interesting, I just want to point this out. Thank you, Redosaurus. It says, the sad truth is that the Jurassic Park franchise is now a glorified toy commercial and not a very good one. It's a crippled brand. Yes, because of the deteriorating quality of the Jurassic World trilogy. Absolutely. And the confusion, the Mattel brand's confusion around their own merchandise between Amber, Legacy, World, and Hammond. They've got to dial that in. The Star Wars Rebels crowdfund was going like gangbusters, and still is, around the same time that the Jurassic Park crowdfund was face planting. A lot of people who like Star Wars also like Jurassic Park. And when you've got a ship from a show that is generally well regarded, that's going to be reappearing in another series here around the corner, and this ship has never been made before in the 3 3/4 inch scale at what looks to be a Legacy Millennium Falcon scale size, you're talking about a very enticing prospect for people. It's 28 inches wide, almost 35 inches long, and 13 inches tall. This is going to be like the Razor Crest, the Legacy Falcon. It's a once in a lifetime thing for diehard Star Wars collectors. This is also a $500 item. So if you are on a budget and you have to choose between spending your money on the Ghost out of a crowdfund or $250 on this Jurassic Park thing, I think a lot of people proportionate to who would have been interested in both. If they had to miss out on one, they probably said to themselves, well, I've already got like 5 T-Rexes, and I bet you some of that. I've already got Lex and Tim. I've already got an Explorer. I can just get another Explorer. I'm betting that I can pass on this and still be okay. I can't pass on the Ghost. The Ghost is never going to come out anywhere else. It's going to be like the Razor Crest and the Sail Barge. This is my chance to get this. And so that also took money and backers away from Jurassic Park, because not everybody has FU money to just throw at everything. Rob says the Rebel card backs were meant to represent a mural that one of the characters painted that was shown in the final episode of the series. Okay. I want to get back to Thor's question real quick. I forgot to highlight it here. Stand by. I didn't mean to miss out on it. I got distracted. It happens. Where did it go? Can't find it. Oh, well, I must have gotten distracted. Sorry about that, Thor. If I find it, I will, I'll ask it. Rewrite it in the chat if you're still there. I'm happy to. Oh, there it is. I found it. If Mattel didn't want to pump a lot of money into this Jurassic Gate, why not sell it as a limited edition with that T-Rex for $89.99 once it's gone? That's it. Yeah, exactly. Like I was wondering why that gate wasn't at standard retail as a legacy collection thing, or even a limited edition thing with a figure and maybe a dinosaur or something like that. 100%. There was no doubt in my mind, given how well the legacy collection is done, you could have sold that gate at Target and it would have sold. The big dinosaurs sell, the gate would have come in something like that. You package it with a dinosaur. It would have sold. There was really no need. Darth, I don't back Haslabs. I'm simply talking about the rationale of why someone would choose it over the Jurassic Park thing. I'm never going to back a crowdfund. I want you to hear me. I'm never going to back a crowdfund. You all do what you want. I'm just talking about why the Ghost did so well compared to the Jurassic Park piece. But yeah, the whole thing is the whole thing is kind of sad, because if they are committed to the idea that the gate is never going to get sold, then they just blew their opportunity to actually have a slam dunk at retail. Because if they're going to try to avoid egg on their face by not bringing it out anywhere else, and if they're going to use that bloated priced crowdfund as a barometer for the viability of the product, then they're making a mistake. The Jurassic Park gate could sell at retail, not at $250, but like they were saying, dial down the package a little bit, make it more reasonable. I don't think we necessarily need motorized gates. Yeah. Yeah, they would stock some gates. Absolutely, Shiny. They would. They absolutely would. But the Ghost coming in at the same time really shows the power of the Star Wars brand. And I'm not trying to pundit for Star Wars here. It's just a cultural known. Like, we all know it. Like, some Star Wars something comes up, and only in very rare instances do these Star Wars things not sell. Now, what I find really interesting about the Ghost, it is, I believe, and everybody keep me honest, I believe it's the third vintage collection Haslab crowdfund for Star Wars. If you have the Sail Barge, the Razor Crest, and the Ghost. The other Star Wars Haslabs were the Black Series Rancor and the Reva lightsaber, and both of those failed. If I'm missing one in there, let me know, because I can't keep it all straight. Coming out with your own crowdfund at the same time as a Star Wars crowdfund like that means that, yeah, exactly, Bjorn. Of course it's funding faster than the Razor Crest. Yeah. But the thing is that if you're going to go up against Star Wars in a crowdfund at the same time as a Star Wars crowdfund, you've got to go big or go home. And by that, like, you've got to do a Cat's Lair like Super 7 or Eternia from Mattel Creations Motu Origins line. Like, you've got to do something like that. You've got to do something batch insane. Like, you've got to say, this is definitely something you're never going to get again. This is your chance to get this crazy thing that you've always wanted. And now you're going to have to choose, Thundercats fan, between the Cat's Lair and the Ghost. See, like with the Jurassic Park thing, there was no choice. There was no contest. It was like, I've already got like 80% of that in a slightly stripped down form, and I can be happy with it. Over here. Oh, no. The other thing that's really fascinating, and let me just get to Shockwave's super chat real quick. Thank you, Shockwave. He says, the fact that JP products are by and large plentiful and easy to find means that the fan base isn't that big and they're not that popular. That is, I would say, indicative, but we don't know how many units per character or per item they're making either. They might have a different total number of units produced versus, say, another brand. However, I think that is part and parcel to it. Like I said, it's a perfect storm of things. I have always maintained, because of my own direct experience with Jurassic Park as a content creator, like I said at the beginning, you make a Jurassic Park video for YouTube, you'll get lucky if it hits the viewing average for your channel in a 24-hour period. You make a Star Wars anything video, for the most part, it's going to definitely do the average. And it'll definitely do 20% better than any other video you put out that month, as far as the average views. Now, there's some things that are aberrations. You can drop a video and suddenly it just blows up, like that Lego video I did. But those are very unpredictable. But most of the time, like Jurassic Park versus Star Wars, it's no contest. My buddy Sal and I used to joke about it all the time. Put out a Jurassic Park video and roll a donut, like, every time. Like, it's I'm not saying Jurassic Park sucks. I'm saying the audience and the fan base for Jurassic Park is not engaged in the same spaces as the toy community. They're engaged in other areas somewhere. Here's a case in point. Indiana Jones. I am a longtime veteran of the Indiana Jones fan community in ways that, like, I'm an Indiana Jones super fan, ultra fan guy, right? Indiana Jones fans, they buy the merch, but more of their money goes into the outfit and the props, like the treasures and stuff like that, and the prop replicas, than anything else. Even with the small, paltry amount of merch coming out right now, more of your indie fans are going to budget toward that stuff than they are the stuff that's officially branded in stores right now. Because it costs more money, and it also means more to them when they get it. It's more special. It's a greater accomplishment for their passion and their collection than some adventure series character that's just going to be standing alone on a shelf because they didn't make any of the other figures from the film, right? I keep wondering if Jurassic Park is like that for the dinosaurs. Like, people like the dinosaurs, but they don't necessarily care about a lot of the other stuff that's in the film. Because a lot of the people who, are passionate about Jurassic Park, they're passionate about it because they also really love dinosaurs. A lot of the channels that focus on Jurassic Park are very embedded in dinosaur facts and research and all that stuff as well. And that makes sense. But it also means that their attention can be split or more focused in other areas. Like with Indiana Jones, you're going to find a guy who's like, if I've got an extra $400 burning a hole in my pocket, I'm going to go buy an amazing handmade, bespoke, accurate fedora than I am a random Hasbro Indiana Jones Haslab, which they haven't announced, and I doubt they would. But let's say they did. It would have to be something immensely special that you would never be able, as an Indiana Jones fan, to get again for them to do that. And that's the thing with the Ghost, is that even though this show is not, no, I didn't. Darth, where have you been, man? I've done videos about this. Did he buy into the Haslab? Did he buy into the indie figures? No, I didn't. I have one Adventure Series figure because you guys were asking me what I thought about it, and I have like one retro figure, and that's it. Like that, because you wanted my comparison on the Stan Solo prototype. I didn't buy into any of those. So this whole thing with the Star Wars Ghost is very interesting for two reasons. One, Rebels is not the most popular. It was well regarded, but it wasn't as popular as The Mandalorian. It wasn't as popular as even Andor. Like, I heard more at the time that Andor came out than I have about people talking about Rebels as a show. So obviously they're targeting this for Ahsoka, but it's the ship from Rebels, right? But Star Wars fans ran over to that and bought it in droves. But notice, Star Wars fans let the Black Series Rancor fail and the Reva lightsaber fail. I look at that and I say, the sail barge succeeded. The Razor Crest, even though it blew up as well during the campaign, no less, the Razor Crest blew up on the show during the campaign for the Haslab, and it still did crazy money. And now the Ghost is doing better than that. And they're all 3 3/4 inch scale vintage collection vehicles. We could now argue that maybe collectors aren't as enamored with the 6-inch line as we thought. Not that they think it's bad, but there are limitations to a 6-inch scale. Like, there's only so many giant creatures and vehicles you can absorb in a display room and that your wallet can absorb at that scale before you have to tap out. Whereas everybody that has maintained their 3 3/4 inch scale, whether it's vintage or vintage collection, they never stop being hungry for vehicles because they're into the world building and the interactivity. And right now, aside from very rare instances of an indoor bunker or half a Bespin freeze chamber bridge to nowhere, all the vehicles are coming from the Haslabs now. So it's an even extra incentive for them to say, oh, this is a vehicle they've never made in this proper scale. That's the other thing. Every single Haslab Star Wars vintage collection vehicle, there's always the possibility that it's going to be the last, even if it's successful. Because you just don't know what Haslab is going to do next. But I find it very interesting that as popular as people say the 6-inch scale is, and as popular as the Black Series is, despite how poorly they rolled out the Rancor tiers, and it was a terrible value proposition, as some people have said in the comments. Yes, it was. And that certainly contributed to its demise as a crowd fund. As passionate as the Black Series people are, and even being told that this is going to be your only chance to get a 6-inch scale Rancor, they still passed on it. And you know that a lot of people in these fandoms will overpay for junk. They do it all the time. So why is that? I don't know. Is it possible? Is it possible that people are still happy to get their 6-inch figures and characters, but they're just not as interested in all the ephemera? I mean, not ephemera, sorry, the peripherals. That's the word I was looking for. The peripherals. Is it possible? I mean, I liked the Snow Speeder. I bought one, but I'm a huge Empire Strikes Back fan. I didn't buy the Force Awakens TIE Fighter. I didn't buy the Luke Skywalker Land Speeder. Is it possible that 6-inch scale collectors are mainly interested in those humanoid icons more than anything else? I wonder. I do wonder. Your Muslim uncle, thank you for the kind super chat. He says, maybe if we bought enough fan-made carbon freezing chambers from your friend, they would sue him and take the idea and sell it en masse. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. Everybody forgets about the Rancor because it was totally forgettable. But yeah, like that's the whole thing. Oh yeah, I forgot about Ray's popsicle speeder, her fudge speeder. Yeah, I forgot about that one, but you're right. That was sold at the same time. Yeah, it's a weird thing to see how that all played out. And I have to believe that bad timing and a number of those factors about Jurassic Park all contributed to it. I have to believe that. Yeah, it was something that I was getting a lot of questions about. And see, even Minsky says, I'm not interested in 6-inch scale vehicles. They take up far too much space. Yeah. What Tomb Raider toys? What Tomb Raider toys are we talking about? There haven't been any. Like, there haven't been any Tomb Raider toys in 22 years, really. Aside from some one-offs. NECA has done some one-offs, but I don't count those. As far as a range of toys, there haven't been toys in 22 years. Why are you sorry? I'm just answering your question. You don't have any reason to be sorry. I'm just laughing about the fact that it's been 22 years. So yeah. Oh, MC Austin, thank you so much for the kind super chat. He says, with Jurassic Park, it's all about the dinosaurs and a follow-up with the vehicles. The actual facilities they had were there just in passing. So for them to do the gate was a flub. That was another thing I wondered. I was like, I wonder why they're not doing the compound. I wonder why they're not doing the central compound instead. That would be a way to go big or go home as well. Now, I would prefer vehicles. Like I said, I would not have been at all tempted by the compound. I would have been tempted, admittedly, if they'd done the science lab, mobile lab from the Lost World. That would have been really cool. Raymond, wow, that's very generous of you, sir. You didn't have to do that. Thank you for the super chat. He says, as a fan of Star Wars Rebels, my problem with this Ghost is 1, it's 9 years overdue, should have been made when the show was on. 2, the unlocked tiers are confusing as to where they fit, Rebels or Ahsoka. That was what confused me for sure. 3, Legacy Falcon at $250 at retail, and the Ghost is $500. Well, the Legacy Falcon on Target's exclusive Galaxy's Edge edition a few years ago was $400. So the Legacy Falcon has had like 3 different price tags. It went from $179.99 when it came out. I think it was a Toys. No, it wasn't Toys R Us exclusive at the time, but it was the Legacy Collection Millennium Falcon. It was $179.99. Then when it came out as a Toys R Us exclusive, which is the one that I ended up buying in the retro Star Wars vintage style box, that was $249.99. Then it was $399.99 for Target for Galaxy's Edge. If it came back out today, I'm sure they'd be like, oh, it's $700. It's really hard to pin that down. Thank you for the super chat, Matt. He says, I feel like TVC has better uniformity than Black Series. It very much does. TVC, the scale of it and the breadth of the line, you're able to hide a lot of sins. Whereas with the 6-inch scale, there's been so much retreading and backtracking and trying to correct dumb errors and then creating more errors in the process. I was at Target the other day at Target when I saw the Jurassic Park Legacy Collection new set with Muldoon and the workers that came out with the Raptor cage. They had the new Mandalorian Luke Skywalker with Grogu or whatever. And just from looking at, because it was a solid front box, but just from looking at the render of Mark Hamill's face alone, I was like, pass. As much as I would like to have a decent Black Series Jedi Luke, the face sculpt alone just looked too scary. I was like, nope, this doesn't look like it's going to pass muster. I'm not doing it. It's so hit and miss with all their stuff, for sure. So yeah, it's been a George Aiken says, with the ghost tiers, they don't have that much choice but to make them the crew. Yeah, and I guess they're not going to do Sabine for whatever reason. I don't know, or unless she's already included somewhere else. Or I know maybe it's because they brought out Sabine Vintage Collection a few months ago. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, exactly, Shockwave. I've always bought unofficial replicas. The official ones end up being garbage for lightsabers for sure. And then when you bring out one that's like, from an unpopular character like Reva, you're just asking for that to fail when you make it a crowdfund. People might have bought Reva's lightsaber, at retail at a lower price, maybe. I don't know, Action Pop Dad. I appreciate you being here tonight, but you're right. They can't. They really can't. I'm not going to be buying I'm not going to be buying any of that. No. No, I'm just not interested. I've got my TVC collection of Empire Strikes Back figures. I'm good with those. Most of them are fully updated. The updated versions for the most part. I think I've missed out on a few that I need to go back around and get. Like, I think there's like some Hoth guys and some Bespin security guards I need to look for, but again, it's not a high priority. Let's see. They have Sabine in the main line. That's what I thought. Okay, that's what I thought. Thanks, Pop Culture Hero. I appreciate that. I vaguely saw that in my mind's eye, but I couldn't remember. Well, now, Capitan, would that be a re-release of the Kenner one, or would it be a brand new tooling like the Legacy Falcon was? I would be curious to find out your opinion on that, your preference. Thank you, Lucas. I'm doing okay. Hope you had a good day too. But yeah, it's let's see, Michael, what are your thoughts on that military semi truck from the original Universal Soldier movie? Kind of reminds me of that vehicle from the Highwayman, but I mean, do you foresee some company making it at some point as a toy? Or was it ever a toy? Are you saying that there was a toy of it that works, or are you saying you wish that somebody would make that toy? Yeah. Suka says Star Wars team said if the Ghost hits all tiers, they'd look at getting a matching Sabine and Chopper with the Haslab crew. That's the other thing that Chopper is missing from this, because people love the droids, and Chopper hasn't been the easiest character. He hasn't been the most produced character in various scales in the line. I know they waited forever to get him in the Black Series. So I wonder why they held off on that, because if Chopper had been just part of the standard package, then that would have probably been an insane boost for the crowdfund. Yes, Paul Rubin passed away today. That's weak. That is weak. Will do, Project Cambrian. Will do. Thank you very much. So yeah, it's been interesting to see how much interest people have given this whole crowdfund thing. It's really been interesting. And to see people who they're kind of having a wake-up call about, their interests, whether it's Jurassic Park or they're having to choose. That's the other unfortunate thing about this is that, crowdfunding, they very much hang on the whole, fear of missing out thing. That's part of the value proposition. And I say that very sarcastically. We're going to hook you with the fear of missing out on this forever. Whereas when you were just shopping at retail, it was like, okay, I'll get that, now, and I'll have to pick that one up next month. Or if I can't find it, I'll find it on eBay, somebody selling it after they got it from retail. This was back when scalping wasn't the thing it is now, but nowadays it's all changed. Scalping became a thing. And now with these Haslabs, people way overbought numbers of those Razor Crests. And then they were very hard to offload there for a while. People weren't as interested. One, because they already got theirs. So everybody who wanted one got one, unlike the sail barge from before. And then they blew up the ship. So there were a few people that were like, I don't really want that anymore at that price. And I certainly don't want it at the inflated price from a scalper. Troy Pacelli, thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. No reason, just cause. Salute, buddy. Salute to you as well. And it was always nice to see you on a Friday night from the live chat. Always a nice time. Let's see. FOMO is a big issue with high-end Godzilla collectors. Pre-order or pay double and beyond after. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, Honor Guard, that was a legit situation that happened. And the thing is that that was a one and done thing. And I illustrated what the deal was with that sail barge and why I went to the links that I did. But you're on your own on getting it shipped to you, sir. You're on your own. I've done my bit for King and Country on that. So I'm happy with my situation there. Yeah, Wotaj, I kind of feel the same way. I feel like there is an accrued interest thing going on here. Like I do feel like that these companies are benefiting in both directions. So yeah, that's true. That's true. But I do not have any of the Lost World T-Rexes. And see, that's the thing, right? Radosaurus just, points out the buck was already released a while ago. I guess this new one must have that. Maybe they were offering it with Hammond collection articulation, I assume. But again, that's not a huge thing for somebody like myself. I can live without that, if they're asking me that price, I can live without it. Put it on a retail shelf, maybe I'd pick it up. They straight up said the tooling isn't paid for before the campaign funds. Okay. Either way, it doesn't change the fact that they are hooking you with FOMO. They are telling you this is the price, take it or leave it. The per unit cost would probably be better if they made a retail deal. I'm never going to be a fan of an $11 billion company trying to crowdfund an item ahead of time. I just think it's dirty. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I have my doubts too, Suka. That's my whole thing. I have my doubts as well, given the prototyping they're able to do and all that stuff. I'm not saying that they would be stupid enough to machine up all the tooling, but my point is that they have the resources as a company that big to already do the tooling. In other words, they could already have done their market research, because with Star Wars or X-Men or Ghostbusters or whatever it is, Ghostbusters maybe not so much, but definitely with Star Wars, definitely with Marvel, they know that these products would sell conventionally. They don't have to go through this song and dance. Because remember, the Haslab thing was supposed to be to make the things that otherwise would never get made. Proton Pack definitely falls under that. I totally see the Proton Pack being a thing. If Haslab had started out with a Proton Pack and not the sail barge, I would have been like, okay, this all makes sense. They're doing what they say they're doing. But putting out anything Star Wars as a crowdfund just doesn't make sense to me. That stuff is going to sell. That Ghost would sell like crazy at a store. It would sell like crazy. You know what, Capitan? I don't really care if they do. I am not interested in worrying about what Hasbro thinks of me. And that's the problem with influencers, is that they get this in their head that they've got to be chummy with these companies. So they start doing this like tap dance between the audience and their relationships with the companies. And it's like, you know what? At the end of the day, the company is not going to pay your mortgage. The company is not going to make you a living. You know who is, though? The person watching your content and clicking those views and helping those views get up on YouTube. The only people that do that are your audience. So you better be on their side. Don't forget where you came from. The audience for a content creator is always paramount. And there is a I don't want to say, it's not a bond, but it's a pact. It's kind of an unwritten promise. It's a, with them, it's there's an understanding, and it's, I'm not going to deliberately or knowingly lie to you, and I'm also not going to knowingly or deliberately try to sell you, on an exaggeration or smoke screen what's going on here or anything like that. I'm going to give you my genuine opinions all the time in a genuine way that's not filtered and not, in my case, not even diplomatic. We are beyond diplomatic opinions in the toy community at this point. There are way too many people who think these companies are their friends, and they're not. They're flat out not your friends. I mean, all these people who think that because some designer at Hasbro answers their tweet or something like that, that they're chums. And it's like, no, they're not. You are chum in the water for them, is what it is. But you guys are not chums. It's ridiculous the way people think about these relationships now. And social media is to blame. Let's see. Lester, thank you so much for the kind super chat. He says, I liked the first Jurassic Park. Same. And I read the novel. Same. I even skipped going to see it summer of 93 so I could read the novel first. And I went back for the rescreening in 94 summer. Thank God they re-released it. Should I watch any of the sequels? If so, which? I want to try being a Jurassic Park fan again. I, however, was jaded with the sequel trailers. I'm not really a huge fan of any of the sequels. I couldn't really guide you there. I've seen Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, and the first. I feel like I know I've seen the first Jurassic World. I don't know if I've seen the second one. I could be wrong about that. I can't remember. I don't think I have. But I didn't like any of those films, really. So your mileage may vary. But if you're anything like me, no. Let's see. Okay, yeah, there's good stuff in the second one, Man of Action. Like I said, I like the mobile lab. I like some of the action sequences. From a purely aesthetic perspective, if you just go in and kind of like try to turn your brain off and enjoy some special effects, wizardry, and stuff like that, the second one may be something you would enjoy. But it's never going to hold a candle to the first one as far as a full experience, a well-scripted experience. Well, I'm just saying that the action sequence with the mobile lab is very memorable. Like that's the one of that's probably for my money, that and the race through the reeds trying to escape the raptors. Those two sequences are probably the best sequences in the movie, as far as I'm concerned. Wesley, I do understand that. I do understand that for sure. What I'm talking about with the Lost World is more of like a cinema study. It's more of like an exercise to watch for visuals and things like that. Ways to build suspense, but they're all, you have to appreciate them in a bubble. You can't really enjoy the whole movie as a full experience. Let's see. Action Pop Dad says the sequels are like going back to an old girlfriend. First time round, it's great. Every time after it gets worse, till you eventually want to cry. Yeah, what was it Taylor Tomlinson said? She said, "This is my lesson that I can't learn or can't seem to learn." Yeah. And that's that's the way it is for a lot of franchises, when you go to sequel after sequel and the movies keep getting worse, but you can't let go of the love you had for the first one. You're chasing the dragon. So it's like, this is the lesson that I can't seem to learn. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of my whole perspective on those two crowd funds. A lot of people have been asking, and I just wanted to give you guys kind of like, you know, a look into that from where I was sitting because of my attempts to make Jurassic Park videos versus Star Wars videos, my purchasing of the Legacy Collection stuff versus my experience with the Star Wars stuff. It's just a Frosty, the book and the film couldn't be farther apart. I liked the book well enough. But the even though it was still kind of forced on Michael Crichton, the film, on the other hand, has nothing to do with the book really at all. You wouldn't mind a Hammond collection Spinosaurus. Okay. Michael, do you think perhaps because they can see the characters move and pose on screen, gamers may be more interested in statues rather than action figures representing their favorite ones? Yeah, probably. And also the fact that they're spending more of their time and money in their gaming rigs and stuff like that. So they just need iconography versus action figure stuff, I would think. And that was told to me by a video game company. Like they said, we find that our fan base, they light on statues and things like that more than they do action figures. I did politely ask, well, have you really tried action figures? And they were like, well, we've thought about it, and we, but our history with it says otherwise. And I'm like, all right, well, that's too bad, because there's action figure people that like your video games that would prefer action figures and not statuary. I get that, we get that, but and then they did that whole like PR song and dance. All right. Well, I am yeah, we do need an updated Jurassic Park video game for sure. For those of you who are on Patreon, you know that in 10 minutes, I will be approximately 10 minutes. I'm going to start the Patreon after show for this stream. I try to do a Patreon after show when I can. So this one's going to start in a few minutes over on the RetroBlasting Patreon. So for those of you who can join me over there at 8 o'clock just to hang out, that would be great. That'd be a lot of fun. I'll just answer a few more questions before I head out. Graham says, only just joined, so forgive me if this was covered. The Mattel Jurassic lines are very frustrating. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Graham. If you go back and listen, I talk all about how they confused their own brand. They really made it very, very, very confusing with Hammond, Amber, Legacy, and World. You'll get a lot of material from me on that when you go back a little ways. Yeah. Excellent. So I'll see some of you over on Patreon in a few minutes. For the rest of you, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to explain my position on this, because you guys were asking over the last few days, and I wanted to make sure that you got an answer. And I felt like it was an answer that didn't need to just be on Patreon, but it needed to be out there for everybody to understand. For those of you who are still, pardon me, Patreon is not OnlyFans. What do you think Patreon is? Yeah, so for those of you on Patreon, I'll see you over there in a few minutes. For the rest of you, thank you so much. I'm working on a big Indiana Jones 5 review. It will be coming out hopefully in a few weeks. In the meantime, I will have some other smaller videos coming out that I think you guys will enjoy, very much in the spirit of the Stan Solo Fleet Trooper review. I'm trying to make my reviews fun and everything like that, like I always have. So I hope you'll look out for those. But yeah, Have a great night, everyone. And I will see you on the next video, unless I'm about to see you over on Patreon. Talk to you guys soon, and have a good one.